Hello, and welcome to today's lunchtime chat. Do you wear commercial hair integrations, or also known as wigs and weaves, for fashion to enhance your look? Or maybe you resort to them to hide your hair or scalp problems. If so, you are among one of 34% of women who wear hair extensions, according to Final Step Marketing. And the percentage of those who wear them is expected to rise in the years to come. It's time to become armed with information so that you can wear them while optimizing your hair and scalp health. My name is Dr. Crystal Porter, and I'm a hair scientist and owner of Main Insights, a company that conducts research and focuses on the hair needs of people from African descent. This platform is designed to elevate the Black hair care industry and empower consumers and hair professionals with education that is driven and backed by scientific research. Now, before we get started, who is out there with me today? And I would love to know not only who you are, but where you are watching from. So please put it in the chat. Also, it would be great to know if you are a practitioner. If so, put the number one. If you are a consumer, put the number two. And if you are a researcher or a scientist, such as myself, you can put in the number three. Also, don't be stingy. Be sure to like and share this broadcast with others. So, if you are frustrated with the lack of information available to you when it comes to caring for your hair, and you have wasted a lot of time, money, and resources trying to figure things out on your own, then you are definitely in the right place. And that is why we have created the Our Black Hair Matters movement. So I've also put together a very valuable resource called The Three Biggest Mistakes to Avoid When Caring for Your Curly Hair. And you can go to ourblackhairmatters.com to grab yourself a copy. Now, I'm happy that I will be joined with my team. And if you have a pressing concern or a need, and you would love to have a conversation with any of our team members, then you can, they are definitely standing by, and you can go to schedule a 15-minute complimentary consultation by going to links.maininsights.com/APPT. Again, links.maininsights.com/APPT, and it is there in on the screen there for you. So now it is time to jump right on in. So as I mentioned a little bit ago, commercial hair integrations, meaning weaves or extensions, are very popular, and the trend is expected to increase. However, there are important things that people should know if they decide to wear them. But you already know that I typically do not wear them myself, and I definitely don't know how to install them. So I am here with my colleagues who are experts on the subject matter, and they are here with me. So let's bring them on in. Awesome. Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining me today. So before we tackle the questions that many want answers to, I want to tell you a little bit about each of my team members. All right. So we have Marvelette Bailey. She is a certified trichologist. Known as a pillar in the beauty industry, Marvelette has over 30 years of experience backed with in-depth training, licensure, and certifications. Marvelette continued her education and training in the paramedical and science fields, becoming a trichology health care practitioner and a biomedical research assistant. And we also have Donisha Sullivan, who is also a certified trichologist. She has over 18 years of service providing hair loss prevention and restoration for men and women who suffer from alopecia or hair loss. Donisha is licensed in the state of Georgia and North Carolina as a master cosmetologist. She currently owns a hair and scalp treatment center in Augusta, Georgia, and she also provides non-surgical hair replacement services. And then we have Dana Wilson, who is a certified trichologist. She is a Sister Locks master trainer, a city certified research assistant. certified cold capper, veteran, and mother of a son on the autism spectrum. She is the director of Hair Cares Inc. and began her own Sister Locks journey in the year 2000. She took her initial Sister Locks consultant training course in September 2000 and shortly thereafter became certified. So thank you guys. Really appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
All right. So I want to jump right into the questions. I'm really hoping that we can tackle them all today. But if not, I'm going to have to knock on your door for a part two because we do have a lot. And this is a hot topic. Want to make sure that I see if there's any comments. Who is here today? We have Taria from St. Thomas. Okay, I'm jealous because I'm in Chicago and it's definitely not as warm here. We have someone who comes up as Facebook user from South Carolina. Some other Facebook user says, hello, I apologize, I can't see your name, it doesn't show. We have Mary Robinson Butler. She is watching the lives and sessions and really enjoy learning. Thank you. Really appreciate that. Then let's see, making sure. And another Facebook user says hello. All right. So let's jump on into the questions. I'd like to know, I'm going to start off with you, Donisha. Why do women say they choose to even wear commercial hair integrations?
Okay. Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to be here for the lunchtime chat. And this is such a great topic. A lot of times I have women and men that will contact me concerning their hair loss, and they want a style that is complementary to what they're used to wearing or their natural look. And so they may be experiencing thinning or breakage or shedding or hair loss, and that hair, they may be in the process of regrowing the hair, or the hair may not be able to be regrown. And so they want something that's going to give them their natural look, but not look like a wig. So fashion is also one of the key parts to the hair integration. Sometimes individuals just want to change their look. It may not be due to hair loss or any hair or scalp conditions. It could just be just for a different look or a different style. And then also there's the background of some religious belief, as you know, as far as head coverings and wearing a wig to protect their hair or to cover their natural hair out of respect and modesty. And so those are just a few things that I've seen.
You know, the first thing you said in talking about the fact that they're trying to hide some hair loss or thinning, that seems to be the most widely told story as to why. And that's interesting because people are hiding in shame, and a lot of times they're hiding without getting help. So thanks for bringing that up. Yeah, so I have seen different hairlines or hair product lines that tailor to weaves and extensions. And I'm wondering, when caring for this type of hair, is there even a need for different products or a particular routine? What should people really be looking out for? Can you answer that, Marvelette?
So, a routine that you should have when you wearing commercial hair or any type of commercial hair, you should follow the same guidelines basically as your own hair. You should cleanse your scalp regularly. A lot of my clients come in every 1 to 2 weeks. Some still come every week. Some come every 2 weeks. There's a special way to shampoo the hair or cleanse it. I like to take a needle nose tint bottle, and I'll do 1 part shampoo to 3 to 4 parts water, and mix it and squeeze it in. Put the needle nose into underneath the tracks, especially if they have the net type weaving, to cleanse the scalp. Sometimes you can put cotton around the edge and let it sit for a minute, or just go in and shampoo it like you would shampoo your regular hair. But you have to make sure you're getting the scalp cleansed, because a lot of times they compress over the top, and some people don't shampoo their hair at all because they feel like the weave, it won't look the same. But if it's done properly, it will.
Well, that's interesting. So, how often? I mean, I know you said that some people come in, every other week, but is that the recommended length of time that they should take when cleansing their hair or scalp when
Yes,
they come in or when they're wearing them?
yes.
So, every 2 weeks.
Every 2 weeks, you should not exceed 2 weeks because it's just like your same routine, and it's even more so important because your hair and scalp is covered, so you really can't get to it. So it's like a breeding ground for everything.
Mhm.
So you need to make sure you're cleansing your scalp properly and often.
Wow. Anybody else have anything to add to that?
Mhm. I was going to say, Dr. Porter, about why people are with commercial integration. And I think one of the, in my experience, that a lot of people are busy. They're busy and they don't have time to deal with their hair. So you can just throw that wig on and keep it moving. And so people's lives are really busy. So I think that's, I've had that experience where a lot of clients are just busy.
Yeah, you are absolutely right. I think people who have gone natural really do feel that, hey, I want to be natural. And then they find out the increased amount of time that it takes to care for the hair. And they're like, huh, okay, I don't want to go back to a treatment. So they'll get the installation. So thank you for bringing that
Yeah.
up because that is important. And so there are different types of commercial hair integration. We have synthetic hair, and then we also have real hair.
Mhm.
So is there a difference between caring for one versus the other? Anybody?
Absolutely. So I'll just jump right in. So with synthetic hair, of course, you're not going to get as long of a wear. It doesn't look as natural. A lot of times with the synthetic hair, it's for a temporary style, maybe for a look for an event or an evening, or just something quick and simple. So you can get the synthetic hair and it can be wefted, which is can be integrated into the hair. It could be a wig, a unit, different things, different styles. You can get synthetic or human hair. However, again, just know that the synthetic hair will not last as long as human hair or virgin hair texture. And then with the care, with synthetic hair, you're not going to apply heat as often or as frequently, and the heat temperature must be a lot lower than than with human hair. You don't want to put a lot of heat onto the hair because it's a synthetic fiber, so the hair fibers can melt,
Mm.
and then again damaging the cuticle or damaging the hair. And so with human hair, you have a lot of options as far as styling. You can add color if you choose to. Um, and also you can apply more heat, and you also have an option of the different textures of hair in the human hair as well.
Hmm. So when you say it doesn't last as long, what's the difference? Like, is it a couple of months for synthetic, but 6 months for human? I mean, what is the typical length of time?
So in my experience, if someone is wearing synthetic hair, I usually do not integrate that into their hair. It's usually a style that can be removed. So whether it's clip-ins or a wig versus a sew-in or something more of a permanent style. Because with the synthetic hair, it cannot handle a lot of friction and styling. And so with that being said, you'll get, if with good care. So like for instance, a wig, if it's a synthetic wig, you can have a synthetic wig for months if it's being properly cared for. So again, you don't want to apply a lot of heat to it. You don't want, and then the longer textures will tangle and mat a whole lot easier than the shorter textures. So depending on the style that you're looking for, or the type of um, either wavy or curly texture, is going to depend on how long that hair will last, and then also how well you're going to wear it. So with human hair, you get more of the opportunity to wear the hair longer. You can integrate it into your natural hair. Um, And I would definitely suggest using, if you decide to have it integrated into your hair, human hair, I would use a satin bonnet or satin pillowcase to reduce the friction, to extend the length of the hair or the wear of it. But definitely, to answer the question, with synthetic hair, you have to be careful about utilizing it frequently to reduce the friction. But you can keep a synthetic wig or a unit for months. And then with human hair, it can be even a year if you decide to wear it on a daily basis.
Okay. Oh, speaking of wearing on a daily basis, so I would think it would be detrimental to both the hair and scalp to keep it in for an extended period of time. So I know you spoke about wigs as well, not just commercial hair integration in the form of extensions. And so when you say keep it up to a year, are you talking about like in the wig form?
Yes. Well, even extensions. So with the virgin hair texture, that can be also kept up to a year as well if it is properly maintained. So using the correct shampoos and conditioners on the type of hair is very important. If you have synthetic hair, you want to use products that are designed for that type of hair texture in order to extend the use of it. And yes, so with human hair, you can have that hair up to a year's use and continue to use it with proper care.
Okay. And Marvelette, I've heard of people reusing the hair. So is that something that you recommend? Because if you use the proper products, and so I want to talk a little bit about what proper products actually are, because you hear sometimes that shampoo is shampoo. If it cleanses one type of hair, it's going to cleanse the other. And so, as I said, there are products that are specifically made or at least marketed towards hair weaves or extensions. And so I'm just curious about your particular experience when it comes to whether or not there are products that work better than others, and what's the difference between the real and the synthetic hair when it comes to cleansing.
Okay, so you asked me two questions. First, you asked about if you could reuse the hair.
Yep.
So the answer is yes. As Donisha stated, depending on the type of hair, be it human or synthetic, you can reuse the hair if it is treated properly. And when it comes to properly cleansing the hair, they do have shampoos and conditioners that are made specifically for commercially integrated hair, be it synthetic or human. But for me, I don't deal with a lot with synthetic hair. And I mainly stick to whatever I use for regular hair. I use on the commercial hair because you're still attaching to your hair. Unless it's I don't do anything with adhesives or glues unless it's a special circumstance. So for my regular everyday clients to get sew-ins, I basically do sew-ins. And some clients get the wig sewn down. But I use the same method as I use for cleansing their hair, regular hair.
Okay, so you mentioned glues. And just yesterday, I was speaking to a friend, and she was talking about her daughter getting ready for a special event. And she booked an appointment with someone who recommended that she have a install with glue. And I was like, what? I mean, I know people still do it, but I just wouldn't believe that anyone who knows me wouldn't have heard how it's a trigger for me in terms of hearing that people are using glue, whether it's in the hair or on the scalp. I don't condone or don't like to hear it being used on either one. So can you talk a little bit about that, Marvelette, in terms of, you said, that it sounded like that there are some times where you could use it. And so can you talk about that a little bit?
So for me, I can only speak from my experience. I don't do a lot of that. So when I do that, I had like one or two people who has a hair issue where their hair is not coming back, and they wear the lace units. That's not my area. That's not something that I do on a regular basis. So when they had special things to do, they got their install put on. Just the front laid down with the adhesive.
Mhm.
But as far as bonding and all, I don't do that. That's not, because it's not healthy. And no matter how you try not to get it on the scalp, it's going to get on the scalp and clog the pores. People are not removing it properly. They make removers for a reason. And sometimes the removers don't even work as they should. There is another product that's very expensive and it's for hair growth, but it takes the glue off really, really well. I'm not gonna say what it is, but if people want to know, they can ask me. But I don't condone it. That's not something I do because it causes more problems. For a temporary look, you can have long-term problems.
Right. So this particular person, so I want you to explain the difference between bonding and then adhesives, meaning the lace front. I mean, you do need to lay it down with something. And so can you talk a little bit about the difference between bonding and adhesive? And the person who I spoke to was specifically talking about gluing onto the hair or the scalp for the particular installation.
Okay, so the bonding glue, it used to come in a bottle with a brush, and as the years elevated and things changed, now it's a squeeze tube, and it's more. It has it's like a rubber like adhesive, and I'm sure it has latex in it. I believe it has a latex base.
Mhm.
So they lay it on the track, and then they put it on the hair. It's supposed to be attached to the hair, but people put it on the scalp. Then the adhesive is usually a brush or sometimes a squeeze bottle. And that's used, it's a different consistency, but it's used to lay usually the lace wigs down, as opposed to the adhesive for the bonding glue. So it's a different mechanism, a different type of hold, I guess you would say.
Okay. Yeah. Well, there have been problems with both. And so there are a number of celebrities who have lost their hair because of lace fronts. And I think the technique has probably improved over the years. But is there something that people need to look out for lace fronts in particular so they don't damage their hair follicles?
So I am not an expert on lace fronts, but from my experience, lace fronts were originally created for people who did not have hair and could not grow hair back. And then for people who were in for theatrical like movies or plays, for things like that. That's what they're invented for. So sometimes we take things and we put them into our everyday lives, which that's not what they were intended for. So if you have hair and you grow hair and you don't have an issue, you might want to stay away from those things. You can wear them, but as far as laying them down, you should put them above your hairline, excuse me, which won't make them look as natural. But if you lay them on your hairline, and I've also heard if you shave the hairline, so you're not disturbing the hair, but you're still clogging the follicle, and it could still possibly cause an issue.
Wow.
That's clogging the follicle for sure. And then when you pull it off, people are pulling the follicle out. And therefore you have traction alopecia because they're constantly putting on, pulling off, which is wear over time, obviously. And I've also seen people get infections onto their scalp, infections around the hairline, depending on the product that they're using to glue it, bond it, and adhere to the. I think it was I can't even remember the celebrity's name, not too long ago, did a whole show on her experience of her lace front wigs. But she had an infection all around the perimeter of her head. And she had to stop wearing those wigs for about a year. I think it was about a year, just to get the infection under control. I would just be very mindful of that.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that.
And I just wanted to add real quick. We say protective styles, but you have to be mindful of what what you're selecting, because a lot of times the protective style ends up giving you an issue. So you have to be mindful of what the definition of protective is and what are you really protecting and what are you not protecting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. There are a number of comments I want to get to. So I see Finny Amagashi, hello. Perdita is here. Barbara Pickens is also here, and she says, there are so many people who overuse commercial hair. This is creating more hair loss issues. Quick weaves need to be banned, and customers need to be aware that the fronts are not all are not for people who have hair, not for people who have hair. Yeah. So as you were saying, that it was created for people who cannot grow their own hair. So yeah, thank you for that. Taria says, that's interesting. I didn't know that about lace fronts. Then Barbara Pickens also says, if a person requires, wait a minute, uses lace fronts that don't need them, then they'll have issues with traction alopecia. Yeah. Taria also says, wow, I'm glad that you ladies are committed to getting the information out. And then Fiona Murray says, if people decide to wear lace fronts, they should give themselves time to rest in between. Okay, awesome. Thank you. All right, so Dana, you specialize in locks, and I have seen a number of beautiful styles where people have added hair or integrated hair to make that faux lock appearance or look. So, can you give us some information from your standpoint, and do you do them yourself?
So I don't add extensions onto locks, but I think they're beautiful. The faux locks in particular, that's just, I see people wrapping it around the locks that they have to extend them or make them look more full. But if you have, if your locking technique is a interlocking, it really does interrupt the locking process, the natural interlocking process, meaning your hair, because the locking process starts at the tip of the hair. So if you're adding something onto the end of it or around it, your hair is trying to incorporate around that added hair. And so as soon as you take it out, you kind of starting all over again. So they look beautiful. The extensions look beautiful, but they're not adding to, it's slowing down the process. That's exactly what it's doing. It's slowing down the process.
So I know your expertise is interlocking, but there's also the palm rolling method. Do you think I know this isn't what you do. I know you're familiar enough with it. Are you able to speak on whether or not it's interrupting that process as well?
Yeah, it does slow it down, but it doesn't interrupt in the way that it does with interlocking.
Okay.
Because with palm rolling, you're waiting for the hair to mat together. So, and that's happening primarily from the inside out because you're using some kind of agent, some glue or beeswax or something in there to get it to mat. So that's happening internally and coming out. So it does slow it down some, but not to the extent for interlocking.
Okay.
Yeah, but it looks beautiful. I just would say, we're very temporarily. Over a month is probably too long because the hair is naturally trying to combine itself with the locking process. So no more than a month for sure.
Okay. So are you speaking about those who want to eventually have locks, or some people who are like, you know what, I want to spend some time rocking locks without a commitment of actually growing my hair and locking it? So are you speaking of both scenarios, whether or not they want to lock or if they just want that look?
So I think if you want a temporary look, because some people are wanting to add the extension just because they're not comfortable with their length and they want it to be longer. I think doing that temporarily is not detrimental to your locks. But if you're actually trying to lock, meaning that you want this semi-permanent hair management system, then I wouldn't add that on there because it is interrupting the process alone. But a temporary style, that's not detrimental at all.
Okay.
So if you want the look, no big deal. But if you want the long-term look of having that semi-permanent hair management system, then I would say don't add extension or add anything on it because it's slowing it down.
Okay, so now I gotta ask. You called it a semi-permanent.
Yeah, I say semi-permanent because it's not permanent. Locking is not permanent. It is a hair management system, just like relaxer is a hair management system. When you don't want it anymore, you let it grow out and then you cut. So it's a semi-permanent.
I don't think I hadn't heard that before, so I wanted you to clarify. Thank you. Awesome. So many people spend a lot of money on hair extensions or the hair itself. It can range anywhere from 100 if you're, well, some is even cheaper. I know I've gone to the beauty supply store and seen them, the bags were really cheap. But if you want to install, you usually have to buy multiple bundles. And so it can range anywhere from $100 all the way up to like 2,000. Actually, I saw 3,000 if you're talking about real hair. So let's start off with the synthetic hair. And is there a quality characteristic that you would promote or stay away from? So I don't want you necessarily to promote a brand, but is there something that you can tell us about the quality of the hair and how important that is for the functionality of the look that you want? So Donisha?
So I have found that with synthetic hair, there are some better quality synthetic hair fibers than others. Some of them are like baby doll hair, literally. And you can't, I mean, any little bit of heat is going to make it draw up or tighten up or mat up or tangle. So those types of qualities, and they are on the cheaper brand or the cheaper scale. I would definitely stay away from those unless you're looking for a synthetic wig that you just want that look. That's something that's temporary, something quick, just to change the style. But there are some better quality synthetic hair fibers that can heat can be applied to them very light. They can last a little bit longer. They won't tangle as quickly, and they have a little bit more of a texture than just the plasticky baby doll type hair texture.
Okay. Is that your experience as well, Marvelette?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. And so it sounds like you both prefer real hair.
It just depends.
Yeah.
But for mainly what I like human hair. Although all human hair is not really human hair, even if it says it on the label, it's really not. That's a fact that I wanted to put out there. So whether you're paying $500, $1,000, you're getting the same thing in most cases as a lower brand hair. You may have a better processing technique, which can be also harmful to you because it depends on what they process the hair with. Anything you put on your scalp, you have body heat, so it's going to raise your body heat and it's going to seep into your system. So you have to be mindful. You have to cleanse the hair before you put it on your head.
Okay, so I was going to ask this a little later. So let's talk about the cleansing process. So, what do you, so I'm going to talk a little bit about the science first before we jump into that. So you talked about there's, a coating or something on the hair, and being from the materials background, what we have found is the fibers, whether they're synthetic or they're real, they need to be manipulated and handled during the manufacturing process. So when I was doing research in the laboratory, I would oftentimes have to remove what is called in industry a sizing. So that sizing is the coating, but it's put there so that during the manufacturing process, the fibers themselves will stay intact. And so a lot of times, depending upon the type of fibers that I was dealing with, sometimes I would have to heat it up and burn it off because I had like glass fibers, for example, when I was working in the laboratory. And so when you talk about cleansing the hair, I think you're talking about removing that coating. And so can you talk about some strategies that people can use in order to do that?
So what I do, I like to use vinegar. Now, vinegar is stripping. So you have to be careful because if you buy hair that is with a curly texture or with a silkier texture, it's going to change the texture of the hair. So what I advise, you could do a test with a small piece of the hair to see how long you want to treat it. You could just swish it around vinegar, not all vinegar, like I'm gonna say maybe 8 ounces of vinegar and 32 ounces of water. I'm just throwing something out there because I don't measure. I just have a little bucket that I use. but I put vinegar and water, hot water, and sometimes I switch the hair around and then I go proceed to shampoo it. Sometimes I let it sit. It just depends on the client, who the hair is for, and what I want to get out of the hair. If the hair has a really, really bad stench, that is, I would not use that hair because something else is going on with it. Or something, they use a very harsh chemical. Normally that's the case. They use something very harsh, which could give you other issues. Because you have people who have, the scalp is broken out, the skin is broken out, they got sick, the hair could have been infested with something, they got something, bugs. So it's a number of issues that go on with the hair, and depending on where you get it from. You can't go by brand because the hair is basically shipped usually the same way. So you don't know how they're shipping it, where they're manufacturing the hair. You don't know what that looks like. You just don't know. So before you get anything, even synthetic hair for braiding, you really should rinse that through vinegar too. A lot of people are not going to do that because it's time consuming, and they figure it's going to change the mechanism of the hair or it's going to slow them down. But sometimes you have to take those additional steps to be safe.
Okay. So, you know what, as you're talking, all I can think about is how is a regular consumer supposed to know all this stuff? I mean, we're talking about it now,
Yeah.
but there are so many brands out there. And I tell people all the time, sometimes it's worthwhile having a consultation with someone who is knowledgeable just to get an idea. So even if you can't afford the installation with a professional, at least talking to a professional. And it may be a cost to it, but based on what you're saying, I wouldn't want to have trial and error or experience it on a trial and error basis to figure out what my hair needs because yeah, it's a lot of money.
That's interesting as well to me because I'm thinking about some clients who that have scalp issues or have experienced scalp issues, and they think that it's because maybe they didn't allow their scalp to breathe, but it's obviously also because of the chemicals that might have been used on that particular hair. Uh, yeah.
Yeah. So there's a question in the chat that says, what are your thoughts on sister locks? And I know that that isn't specific to the topic at hand, but I do want to say that Dana will be on with me one-on-one, and we will be talking about that on June the 6th. So the first Monday in June, Dana will be talking about locks in particular. And so I would actually say, Dana, you are the one to talk about that. You want to just give like a sneak peek of what it is we'll be discussing?
Yeah, so we'll be talking about trico essentials for locks in general. So, what are the things that we need to think about in regards to saving our scalps, right, and our hair, and how we need to, as practitioners of locks, things we need to think about as far as parting the hair and stuff for people having hair loss as well. So, all things lock.
Okay. But obviously, you are a supporter of Sister Locks because not only are you certified in doing them, but you also wear them yourself. So, yeah. So, and I think her feelings are kind of obvious in terms of she advocates for them, right?
Yeah, I'm biased. I'm biased. But I love locks in general.
Yeah. All right, then we have someone who's Fiona says many people don't care about the integrity of the hair and scalp. So I would say I think they don't care until something happens, and then they care a lot, you know. So thank you for that. And then Ariana says synthetic hair can be blown dry to kill bacteria. Ooh, yes, and you know what? I'd be curious about that. Because even if you think you're killing, so say you kill all bacteria, because when you install it, there is good and bad bacteria that exist all over our body, including our scalp. So you can remove bacteria, but it's going to come back. And depending upon your particular microbiome, which is like the environment of microbes that are on your body within and on the surface, that's going to dictate how the bacteria will grow. And so all of it isn't bad, but this seems also like the opportunity to talk about research that one of my students did when she was in her undergraduate studies at Chicago State University. She did studies on synthetic hair, but we had students that also looked at the microbiome and how that changes on the scalp. And don't, no matter what type of hair you use, it is going to disrupt your normal microbiome or the environment in which your scalp is in. So consider that it is going to change. And we haven't talked about this yet, but there are some people who cannot have like extensions or hair integrations in their hair because they are sensitive to it, right? You have not only is it due to lack of cleansing or not the frequency of cleansing not being enough, but sometimes day one they have it installed and that next day they're having it removed because they have a response to it. I was wondering if you have any experience with that yourselves, or well, having a sensitivity issue or having clients have a sensitivity issue. So Marvelette.
Years ago, I had a client who had a sensitivity issue to sew-in, and she had to remove it the next day. She got physically sick. So whatever was on the hair, and this had to be at least maybe 20 years ago. It's been a very long time ago, before I was even a trichologist. But whatever it was on the hair, she couldn't take it. And I always shampoo the hair before I install it, but she was sensitive to it. It just made her, she said she just felt sick. She had to take it out. And then there was a particular brand of hair I used, I guess about 10 years ago. It broke my scalp out. It was like red and pussy, whatever it was, it broke me out. And I did treat it. I didn't soak it in vinegar, but I did treat it, but it's still. So that's when I went to using vinegar on everything. If I'm going to put it on me, it has to be treated with vinegar, and I boil water. So whatever's stripped off is stripped off. I don't care. It is what it is.
Wow.
So I had experience with a couple of clients that had lock extensions were like pieces where because they had low density, and so they wanted to add locks. Now, for the clients who had the synthetic hair, they had more issues than the ones that had the natural hair, meaning maybe they cut part of their locks and then they incorporated into the places that had low density. They didn't have as many issues as the folks that had synthetic locks in their hair. Now, I don't recall what kind of like the brand or anything like that, but I know that they had sensitivity on their scalp.
How about you, Donisha? Have you had any experience with that?
I have. And actually, I get a lot of women that'll contact me that have been wearing like the braid extensions. And as Marvelette mentioned, like the synthetic hair, a lot of times the person that's installing it, they won't take the extra step of cleansing the hair or trying to strip it or anything beforehand, because again, it slows them down, or they're just not accustomed to treating the hair before application. And I have seen several cases where an individual have gotten braids or an extension, got extensions installed, and their scalp is red and inflamed, or their hair has broken off. They've taken the braids out, and a whole braid can come out, or it'll break off, or they'll have short, choppy pieces throughout the hair from where the extensions have been applied. So I have seen where people do have an intolerance to, if it's not the hair itself, then whatever chemical has been put on the hair, they do have, some people have a reaction to it.
Wow.
I just wanted to add too, when the synthetic hair for braiding, usually it starts off as a ball and it runs through a machine and produces the hair. And that stuff is shipped. It's in warehouses, in crates, not wrapped up, and usually warehouses, you have mice. So they're using the bathroom on the hair and everything else before it's packaged. And then they package it up and sell to consumers. You put that directly on your hair and on your scalp. So you really have no idea what you're putting on your scalp, which is then going into your system.
It's interesting you say that because there has been buzz in the industry that there is no quality control. There isn't a, not to say there isn't a need for it, but no one is overseeing. People are just selling hair and letting them do whatever they want to do. So yeah, there's no oversight, which can be a problem. So you're absolutely right. It's a reason why we have laws and regulations like in food and even in making products, to make sure that you have good manufacturing practices. And I don't think that that is something that people even question, but it's up to us as consumers to demand that there is transparency. And I don't think that there is a particular agency that oversees that. I would have to look into that further, but that is something that has been going around in the industry. All right, so we have Barbara Pickens. She says, it's so sad that when clients are told of the dangers of using things that aren't good for their hair and scalp, they continue the cycle until something horrible happens. Yeah. And then Ariana says, in adverse to vinegar. So I think she's talking about what she was talking about with the bacteria. And then Maurice says, learning so much from these live sessions. Okay, thank you so much for the panels and appreciate the efforts to provide and share information. Thank you for that compliment. Taria said, wow, to some of the information. And then Fiona says, wow, never thought about that. Awesome. And I think she's referring to the conditions in the manufacturing plant. All right, so I'm curious, what are some of the common mistakes that you've witnessed when it comes to people wearing commercial hair integrations? Dana?
I would say not letting your scalp breathe. I mean, you can enjoy the style and they're beautiful, but you need to let your scalp breathe at some point. Obviously, cleansing the scalp is important, but this letting the scalp breathe with nothing attached and nothing on it, I believe that is probably the number one thing that I observe that is that's
Hmm.
Mhm.
How about you, Marvelette? What common mistake have you witnessed?
Wearing it too long and having it bound too tightly, having it installed too tight and wearing it too long.
Okay. You want to add to that, Donisha?
I do. Improper installation. So, as was mentioned earlier, if you have edges, if you want to keep your edges, then be mindful of the type of install that you're getting applied to your hair. Um, and if it's done improper, if it's done to be extra tight to last extra long, just know that you are actually causing harm to your hair and your scalp versus having a protective style. And I use quotations because, again, it's not protecting um, your hair, is actually causing more damage. So, improper installation is a big issue, and then improper care with the installation.
I'm glad you mentioned that. That's like one of the biggest problems with these protective styles, right?
Mhm.
It's supposed to protect your hair and scalp, but sometimes you do more harm than good. Um, and it's interesting because it doesn't even have to be about an install, but even the weight of it, as you said, a lot of times we want these like itty bitty neat braids. And
Right.
sometimes if you have these long extensions on a smart, on such a small part of your scalp, so a small surface area, is going to cause tension and wreak havoc, unfortunately. So thank you for mentioning that. Barbara Pickens says it's so important as a professional that we should hold firm to what we know and what's healthy and what's unhealthy. Don't allow clients to dictate what you know and what you should and should not do. After all, we are the professional. Yeah. So many professionals, I think, cave into client pressure because the client wants something and it's not for the benefit in the long run. So thank you for that reminder. So is there a particular, so we mentioned earlier on that a lot of people are people are hiding thinning and balding, but you sometimes continue to see people who have these ailments wear commercial hair integration. So, what should people be aware of? Because I have seen it done in such a way that the hair does start to grow back, even though they're still doing the commercial hair integration. And so, are there any do's and don'ts when it comes to hiding thinning in terms of what types of commercial hair integration can and cannot be done as a result of trying to hide? Marvelette?
Every person is different. It depends on what your hair loss issue is, where it is,
Mhm.
and what your treatment options are. Some people, and I'll ask them, what do you want from me? What is your goal? Some people don't want to correct the hair loss issue; they just want to hide it. So that's a personal preference. For those who do, you can put an install in a way that you can still get to the area that needs to be treated, or you could do other methods. Sometimes the hair that's still present is strong enough to withstand it, and sometimes it isn't. So you might have to go to a wig. So it just depends on what the situation is and what their overall goal is.
Mhm.
That's why consultation is key.
Agreed. Agreed. All right.
I
So,
like to add to that. It's also important too, depending on, like Marvelette mentioned, depending on what that individual wants. So even if you're wearing a wig unit or a sew-in or whatever style, it's just really important to understand the importance of taking care of your natural hair and also your scalp. So even if it's a wig and you decide that you don't want to deal with your own hair, still put in the effort to take care of your scalp and your natural hair, however much you have, whatever is going on underneath, you still need to take care of it.
yeah, yeah. So I read that by Barbara Pickens, but I want to choose a different one. So Fiona says many of the professionals um, are shortchanging. Are yeah, shortchanging services, and the clients are choosing to go to them and not get the services that they deserve. Yeah, that's true. That's true. We were part, so Marvelette and I were a part of a panel discussion at an event that was this past Saturday. And one of the things that was mentioned is that there are braiders now who just ask the people to come in pre-shampooed. And so there isn't proper care for the hair, like someone who has been trained and actually knows, or at least they should know the right way to go about doing it. And so, yeah, I think all these things need to be kept in the forefront of the mind, because I personally would not want to go to someone who's going to request that my hair be pre-shampooed, but that is something that's common. I want a professional to look at my hair, to actually see the condition of my hair and use the proper shampoo, conditioner, or whatever I need, so that whatever style I have, whether it's a commercial hair integration or not, that is going to withstand it in the best way. So thank you for that.
Mhm.
So I want to talk a little bit about aesthetics before we close up, because while we need to, take care of our hair and scalp, it's also important that people look and feel beautiful. I talk about that all the time. In the end, that's what people want. They want to look and feel beautiful. So let's talk a little bit more about the aesthetics, because we talked about how synthetic hair can tend to matte, how there is different quality in terms of maybe it being like Barbie doll hair, where put water on it immediately, knots up or tangles, and then real hair. So, can you have synthetic hair that looks real and the aesthetics of it, or are you always going to be able to tell?
I'll jump in on that one really quick. So typically, again, there's different qualities to even synthetic hair, or even human hair. So If you get a better quality synthetic hair, it's still going to be synthetic and it's still going to behave as a synthetic hair, meaning it is not going to blend as easily. However, there are techniques that can be utilized even with synthetic hair that will give a pleasing look. It will be pleasing and not look so plastic, um, for a better word, for lack of a better word. So, I would, yes, I would say that you're still going to have a synthetic fiber and it's going to behave like a synthetic fiber. It's going to have that shininess to it. It's going to um, look a little different. But it still can be styled and look very tasteful. Um, I love wearing integrations and different styles. So I usually change my look on a regular basis, and I will use a synthetic unit or a wig from time to time. But again, there are different techniques that you can use to style it so that it doesn't look like a Barbie doll wig, if you
Okay. Margaret.
Yeah, you can style them differently. Like Donisha said, there's different techniques you can do to make them not look so synthetic. To take some of that shine off. That's one thing that bothers me about synthetic units, that high shine. I don't like that. So there's things you can do to kind of dull the shine. But I prefer synthetic blends, synthetic human blends. They tend to work much better. And they are on the cheaper side. They're kind of in the middle, not too low, not too high, and they kind of get the job done with a more natural look.
Okay. Dana, you want to add anything?
I can't add anything, but I did learn something just from Marvelette about. I didn't know they had a synthetic natural blend. So that's interesting. But no, I have nothing to add to that at all because I really don't. I don't encourage it with locking unless the only thing I would say is I see people wearing wigs when they first start their locks because they're not comfortable yet with the length or the look in the beginning. And I would just encourage people to make sure that they allow the scalp to breathe and to take care of it. But I don't have anything to add in regards to the quality of the hair.
Okay. Now, Taria asked, what is the mindset of the stylist requesting you wash before you come in? Is it time or a hygiene issue? Want to talk about that, Margaret, since we talked about that during the panel discussion?
So it's so funny when that first came up. The other question, took me right back to the panel discussion yesterday, Saturday, about and it's not just the braiders requesting that clients come in pre-shampooed or short, style ready. It's other professionals too. I would like to think the people that are doing that are not licensed. However, I kind of believe some of them are. But I don't know what I can't speak to that because I don't do that. I only know what the audience said when we were on the panel discussion. So the audience, I'm not quoting myself. I'm quoting the audience members. Some people said it's a money thing. They're trying to get more clients in, more clients out. I don't know. I try to maximize the money that they make. I don't know. Probably to save on time. But if you're not sanitizing tools, you don't know if they shampooed. Somebody had their requirements posted on Instagram. Somebody showed them to me, and it said shampooed at least 3 days prior, no more than 3 days, or no less than 3 days. So you had to have a 3-day window to shampoo your hair before you can get your hair done by this particular person. And she is not a braider. Mm-hmm. And this person charges $500 for a ponytail, and she is not licensed.
Okay. That's a whole nother chat. That's another chat.
So for a lot of opticians, because they're not licensed, they may not be licensed cosmetologists. It is common practice that they just have the client come with their shampoo within 24 hours prior to the service, and they're just doing the maintenance and not the shampooing or the cleansing of the scalp. So that's common practice in the lock world.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So a couple of comments. Barbara says, WTW. Fiona says, what? That's nasty and crazy. $500 for a ponytail? Yeah, that is crazy. All right. So we're going to end it by just, are there products that should be avoided when you have a commercial hair integration? Dana, is there something that you can think of?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Marvelette?
I know a common practice that people were doing was the oils. They get the oil in the tubes and they like to squeeze an abundance of oil on their scalp. You should not do that anyway, whether you have commercial hair integration or not. But they're squeezing abundance of oil onto the scalp and it's getting caught underneath the wefts and it's just sitting on the scalp, causing bad bacteria and possibly fungus and just sitting. So you should not do that.
Yeah. You know, I think a lot of people do that when they have like their scalp is itching and they think that that's going to help alleviate it. I think that's a practice, but yeah, I can't do that. I'm a over producer when it comes to sebum, so I don't need any extra help. And Donisha, any products you can think of?
Yes, being mindful of, again, the installation and the products being used, so that the type of adhesive being utilized on the hair, on the skin. Make sure whoever is doing your install, whatever method they're using, if it's with an adhesive or some type of cream or anything for the hair, then do a patch test. I would definitely suggest that, because you could have a reaction, even if it is designed for the lace front or designed for applying the hair unit to the scalp. Just make sure that there's a patch test done to make sure you don't have a reaction to that product.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to add one other thing. A lot of times clients will have a commercial hair integration. They'll come in and say, for those who are not natural, can you give me an edge? Absolutely not. Because if you think about it, if you put a chemical on the hairline, you lean back in a bowl, you rinse it, it's going back, which is underneath the unit. How do you know that you're getting all of it off? You don't. Mm-hmm. So that is a no-no. You cannot do that. You should not be doing that.
Wow. I hadn't heard about that. Wow. Thanks for letting us know. So a couple more comments before I ask you ladies to let us know how you can be reached. So Fiona said, okay, Perdita, hers is first. I try to cleanse the scalp and require a treatment before I braid the hair. Okay. And then Fiona says, some scalps shouldn't have oil because of seborrheic dermatitis. That is why I don't do it, because of my seborrheic dermatitis. Yes, you're absolutely right. And Barbara says, yes, patch test is so important. Awesome. All right. So thank you for this discussion. I would love for you to let us know how you can be reached. So Dana, can you share, please?
Yes, you can find me at my website, which is www.haircares.com. So please go to my website.
Okay. And then Donisha?
Yes, I could also be reached at my website, which is www.thehbtc.com. So that's www.thehbtc.com.
Awesome. And Marvelette?
And I can be reached at my website as well. That is www.trichoscienceclinic.com.
Okay. And all of those websites have been put into the chat. So thank you so much. Demetria says, great info. Thanks for sharing. Thank you so much, Demetria. All right. So thank you, ladies, again. And I would just love for you to continue the conversation. So if you haven't done so already, please go to the Our Black Hair Matters movement and join the group and let us know your comments, especially if you view the replay. And always remember that our Black hair matters. And as always, take care and love your hair. Bye-bye.
Bye.